John Harbaugh has once again doubled down on the offensive line, and he did it in brutal fashion. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here. And whether you're an everyday or a first-time listener, or if you're somewhere in the middle, your support means the world to me here on this show. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. We have a jam-packed episode today. The Ravens come out with a win in Week 11, but on Monday, John Harbaugh doubled down on the offensive line again. So we'll talk about what he had to say and my thoughts on the unit a little bit more. Now we have some grades to look at the performance in Week 11, so we'll dive into all that. In the second part of the show, a former NFL running back questioned Lamar Jackson, and I thought that it was an interesting conversation. I want to respond to those questions and give my 2 cents. Then finally, we'll do some more Ravens and Browns talk about the game and what the Ravens can take from that game and take it into next week and the rest of the season. So appreciate everybody again. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, well, it's no secret. The Ravens' offensive line it's not been good this year. It hasn't been up to the standard that they need it to be. The Ravens, they started 1-5, and while the defense had a lot to do with that, the offensive line was still a part of that problem. And while the defense has gotten back on track, at least they're a lot better than they were, the offensive line is still going through major problems. And in this Week 11 game against Cleveland, I think it was probably on the fullest display we've seen this season. Now they have Myles, Garrett, and that defense is really good, but that's still no excuse to play the way that they played and the way that they have been playing. And so there's been a question all season. John Harbaugh has been asked the question. Everybody's been talking about it. I mean, we've certainly talked about it a lot here on this show of the Ravens offensive line. They need to make a change, but are they actually going to do it? And, I think the time to make that change was during the bye week. I've said that many, many, many times. I think this is the 5 they're going to rock with. And John Harbaugh essentially all but confirmed that in his press conference on Monday. He doubled down on the offensive line and did it in kind of a brutal fashion. So he was asked about it almost every week. You've been asked about making potential changes on the offensive line. He was asked by Jess Rebick at The Athletic, have you seen the progress there to where you don't think changes are necessary? And he essentially said, yeah, and said, quote, you put the best 5 players out there, the 5 guys who are playing the best. That's what you do. It's not even a hard answer. So the answer is pretty much yes, we're putting the best 5 out there, and they're playing pretty darn good. I'll read the rest of the quote after I respond to this part of the quote, because this is just ridiculous. This is just a slap in the face to me, and it's probably a slap in the face to every other person who's watched the Ravens, every other Ravens fan, every other person that covers this team and, invested for some reasons, even NFL fans who watch this team 1 week and say, hey, that offensive line's not looking that good. The Ravens offensive line isn't playing good. It's okay to admit that, and it's okay to say that. And I don't expect John Harbaugh to go up there and bash his players and be like, oh, these guys are terrible, and they're not playing good. And, they have to get – this is unacceptable. I mean, I'm sure that would actually – I'm sure people would be like, yeah, John, go. Like, yeah, that's what we want. But an NFL coach is not going to do that to that extreme level. There's a way to say that they're not playing good without getting to that level and without essentially like slapping the fan base in the face by saying, yeah, they're playing pretty darn good, when there are stats to back up that's not true, when there is tape to back up that's not true, when you can just watch the game for 3 hours and after the game you come away, hey, what's one of your takeaways? Well, man, that offensive line didn't play very well. This to me is an answer that is just, it's not true. It's not true the offensive line is playing pretty darn good. I don't agree. And probably 99.9%, with the 1% being John Harbaugh and maybe the coaching staff, would also say that the offensive line is not playing good. We got some PFF stats, and I know some people love PFF, other people don't, but this is just context. This put out by Russell Street Report. Run blocking for the Ravens offensive line in week number 11. Andrew Voorhees, 70.4 grade. Roger Rosengarten, 65.3. Tyler Linderbaum, 63.4. Ronnie Stanley, 62.9. And Daniel Faalele, 54.7. In the pass blocking department, Linderbaum, 78.1. Voorhees, 75.7. Rosengarten, 57.5. Ronnie Stanley, 33.9. And Daniel Faalele, 23.2. So Voorhees did not have a terrible game in this one. There are a couple of reps that were bad, but Voorhees was not the main problem in this game against the Browns. Linderbaum, I thought, was fine. There, again, some tough plays from him, but every lineman had tough plays. Stanley was not good. Rosengarten was terrible, and Faalele also was terrible. I mean, it's not just Daniel Faalele, but that's where all of the criticism goes because he's been the most inconsistent for the longest amount of time, dating back to obviously last season. But you can't sit there and say, yeah, the offensive line is playing pretty darn good when guys are getting thrown around and guys are flailing around and missing blocks and not blocking people. It's not true. And this was a brutal double down because you can say, you know what, yes, we believe in these guys to get better. You know, we have a standard of excellence here and, you know, we're working every week to get those guys there. They've had great moments, this, that, and the other. Now, he did say, quote, can they play better? Sure. And you evaluate it play by play. Every single position you evaluate it play for play. And some plays are great. Some plays are good. Some plays need to be better. And we want them to be better. And you try to improve on them. So that's how it goes with every position. And there are always going to be areas for that from one game to the next. Can play better. You know, he went on how, you know, put your team out there, compete, this, that, and the other. And he said, quote, all of our guys, including our offensive line, fight and compete and get after it. And that's what those guys are doing too. So none of our positions are perfect and they're not perfect either, but they're trying to be. So we put our best group out there and we fight. That's what we do. I also don't believe it's true the Ravens are putting the best five out there that they can. You know, the depth right now is dire. We talked about that all offseason about how he didn't do enough at the guard spots and losing Patrick McCary was a really big deal. So that's all been true. But to me, they are not putting the best five out there that they can. And I went on this whole rant yesterday about how the Ravens have a duty to put the best five out there to protect Lamar Jackson. They're not doing that every time they trot out this group. This offensive line, I mean, I'm scared for Lamar Jackson's health, the amount of hits he's taking. And he already, I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit in the second part of the show. There are many people wondering how healthy he actually is at this point with them, you know, not using his legs as much and, you know, how Lamar looks out there. Like there are a lot of people that think Lamar is not playing at 100%. And I certainly don't think he is. You know, he's healthy enough to play in the games, but, you know, he's dealing with stuff. He's nursing some stuff, it feels like, with the knee injury, and he's obviously coming back from the hamstring. So you need to protect your quarterback. And we're 11 weeks in. Now this is week 12. You've had essentially a 3-month sample size to see this offensive line. And while not every player is the problem every week, again, I think Faalele is the most consistent problem week over week, but like we talked about, Voorhees has been a problem in a lot of these games. He wasn't the biggest problem in the game on Sunday against Cleveland. So while it's not like every single player is playing poorly every single week, I mean, why not make a change? The Ravens made an offensive line change during the Super Bowl year in 2012 where it wasn't working. I think it was late in the season. It was really late in that season. It might have been the last game of the year. I'm trying to remember it, but they obviously Bryant McKinney, they don't have a Bryant McKinney on their roster, but you know, moving guys like Michael Orr around, Kelechi Osemele, like you can move guys around, you can plug guys in. And again, there's not a Bryant McKinney on this roster right now, I don't think, but you have to at least try something, I feel like. But with this answer, Harbaugh's doubling down on his guys. And it's what I've been saying for weeks now. It's that this team is probably not going to change anything at all. They're not. And it's very stubborn in my opinion, because I think that there are better options on the roster. How much better? I don't know. It honestly might be just similar. It's like a 1-for-1 trade-off. It doesn't really get any better. It doesn't really get any worse. But you at least want to try that. And that to me, it's doing a disservice to your quarterback. It's doing a disservice to your offense. It's doing a disservice to your team, to the fan base, to continue to go out there and, you know, seeing with your eyes, watching the tape, seeing with, you know, the way that Lamar has to scramble around, because Lamar is the best in the league, in my opinion, at making things happen, going out there every single week and masking poor offensive line play. But it's not fair to him to ask him to do that every single week. And I'm not saying it's every single play, but we see variations of it a lot this season, whether it's Faalele or Rosengarten, who's regressed badly this year. or Voorhees. Stanley had a really bad week in week 11. Like, that was bad. You need to be able to just say, you know what? Like, hey, with the defense the past couple of years, what have they done? Things weren't working with Marcus Williams and Eddie Jackson and Trenton Simpson and, trying to find roles for guys. Jaire Alexander, that didn't work out. Did the Ravens keep trotting them out there and say, hey, let's just rock with it? No, they made changes. They made adjustments. And I get it. The offensive line, it's a unit. Harbaugh was asked about that at the end. He talked about how it was valuable and important for the offensive line position to have that continuity with, the health that they've had and, having that time together. So clearly, I think that's a factor in this. But at the same time, it's like, if it's not working, it's not working. And again, they've shown me nothing where I can say, yeah, I feel really confident they're just going to flip a switch here and all of a sudden become one of the best units in the league for the last month and a half of the season. Like, I'd love it, but what have they as a collective unit shown us? What has Daniel Faalele shown us? What has Roger Rosengarten shown us to put confidence in all of us, in everybody who watches this team, covers this team, is a fan of this team? I mean, where's that confidence? I mean, it's nowhere, because they haven't shown that they can do that consistently. And, you're able to kind of mask it here because you played a bad offense and the defense kept you in the game, and the defense has played really well. The offense kind of was on point early in the season for the most part. The defense wasn't great. Now it's the defense's turn to kind of carry the offense a little bit here. But when you get to the postseason, you're playing better offenses. And while the defenses might not be as good as Cleveland's, you're still going to be facing probably like Denver has a heck of a defense. There are a couple of other really, like New England's defense is good. What happens when those pass rushers are continuously getting in the backfield and, you had an opportunity to make a change and you didn't? You're going to look back on it and be like, man, maybe, Harbaugh might be saying maybe we should have done that. So I don't know the situation and what's going on, but it feels like the Ravens just kind of want to go. If it goes bad, it goes bad. If it goes good, it goes good. It feels like if it goes bad, they're just going to kind of sink with the ship. And that, to me, is not the right thing to do, especially when you have Lamar Jackson. So, I mean, we all saw it on Sunday. We've seen it all season. And this, to me, a pretty brutal double down by John Harbaugh on this offensive line. So coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about a former NFL running back who questioned Lamar Jackson. Stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making it that late push. And in the NBA, I'm a big Denver Nuggets guy, and right now over on FanDuel, they have the second best odds to win the NBA championship. Only the Oklahoma City Thunder are ahead of them. Denver's at plus 650, Oklahoma City's at plus 170. And I like that number for Denver, where I think they've put together a really solid roster. They're still learning how to incorporate their new pieces, but I think come playoff time, they're going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with. And honestly, they already kind of are. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets on your first $5 bet win. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Tuesday edition of the show. Appreciate everybody again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. The regular show Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time. Plus, we have bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines to talk about. We have Locked On Ravens watch-alongs during games where we react to every single play. We have instant reaction shows after games, as well as after pieces of big breaking news for the Ravens, as well as the Locked On Ravens squad show. Myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail twice a week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, as well as after games. So much content and coverage here for you on Locked On Ravens. Again, hit the like and subscribe button in video form and follow along and subscribe in audio form. Let's dive into a former NFL running back who questioned Lamar Jackson. This coming after the game between Baltimore and Cleveland in week number 11. And Damien Harris, who was a running back for the Patriots and the Bills, been out of the league for a couple of years now. He was on CBS after the contest again, and he asked questions about Lamar Jackson. And I'll just read his kind of answer or, his speech here about Lamar, because he got into it a little bit. He was saying, quote, "What the hell is wrong with Lamar Jackson? When I watch him, I see two things. I see him playing scared and hesitant, and I see him frustrated after every single drive that doesn't end with 7 points. When I talk about him playing timid, he wasn't climbing the pocket. He wasn't extending plays with his legs and letting his receivers uncover. There were lanes. There were opportunities for him to tuck and run. Is he still worried about the hamstring? Are there other ailments? There's a lot of snapping of the chin strap, and you can see the visible frustration on his face every time he goes to the bench. I get it. Your team isn't where you want them to be. You dug yourselves a hole. You're trying to get out of it, but you've got to do that with a positive mentality. I'm not using this as an opportunity to bash Lamar. I genuinely want to know what's going on, because they have a chance, but he has to be at his absolute best. And when you're playing timid and when you're not aggressive, when you're so frustrated, it's hard to be that positive example on the field." Okay, well, I will answer some of Damien Harris's questions here, because, again, I don't know how much of Lamar he's watched. Obviously, me doing this show since 2019 and being a fan of this team forever, I know a thing or two about Lamar Jackson. And Lamar is the most competitive person you're probably ever going to meet, or at least one of them. I mean, you can just tell how competitive he is, and he expects perfection. And it's not just about, it's, really honestly not at all about his teammates. I mean, sure, he gets frustrated at guys for not, being in the right spot sometimes, but it's not about him showing anybody up. It's about the fact that he expects perfection from himself. And whenever he doesn't execute, or whenever the team doesn't execute, he puts that blame on himself. And, Lamar's someone that he wants to blow everybody out. He wants to score a touchdown on every play. And it's not about him not being a positive example on the field. Lamar's a very positive example on the field and off of it. You see him coaching up guys, trying to make sure they're in the right spots. Like, he has a positive mentality as well. I mean, we've heard him talk about how take it one game at a time, this, that, and the other. He never throws his teammates under the bus. He always shoulders the blame himself. I mean, this is all stuff that Lamar Jackson has done for years. So I'm answering the question, right? I'm saying, look, this is who Lamar is. He's competitive. He wants that perfection. And I think it probably does have something to do, not that he's worried about the hamstring, but I just don't think he feels his best right now. Lamar, he's saying he's feeling pretty good out there, and I think he's feeling good enough to play in the games and not be a hindrance, right? I don't think Lamar is a hindrance with how much below 100% he is, because we can be honest, and we talk about this all the time, and we talk about it with Qadri Ismail, who played in the NFL. He's an NFL vet. He went around the league, Super Bowl champion. We talk about it. No one's 100% in the NFL once the season gets going. You're getting dinged up, and you're getting bruised and battered and all that. Like, everybody has things they're dealing with. And so for Lamar, with the management of the knee and the hamstring stuff, I don't know what the situation is there, but the Ravens are not using him as much with his legs. Lamar is not running as much, and that's okay, because guess what? Lamar can throw that thing. we know Lamar can throw that thing, but I don't think anything is necessarily wrong with Lamar Jackson outside of, he's probably just not 100% right now, because nobody is. It's just like, how far below that 100% threshold is he? We're probably honestly never going to know the answer to that question. But, I don't think he's playing scared or any of that. Like, look, in this game in particular, because this is what they were talking about, where Damien Harris was saying he wasn't climbing the pocket, wasn't extending plays with his legs, letting receivers uncover, etc. I mean, you try playing behind that offensive line. I mean, that was a big part of it in this game in particular to me, where there was a guy in Lamar's face, like Myles Garrett was just throwing offensive linemen and stunting inside. Like, everybody was getting to Lamar. I know what's happening. Boom, like snap of your fingers. That's not a lot of time for anybody. Nobody. I don't care who you are. You could be Lamar Jackson. You could be the best at extending plays, or, unbelievable at masking poor offensive line play. No one is masking that poor of an offensive line performance that we saw in week 11 consistently. So, I mean, look, that's exactly what it is in this particular game, is there weren't opportunities for him to do a lot of that. I mean, sure, was there an opportunity or two for him to run the ball? Maybe, could he have gotten a big gain? I'm not sure. But a lot of it had to do with, like, he was already trying to, like, figure out, man, all right, I just got sacked. Now I got to do this all again. And then you have Myles Garrett in your face again. It just kept going and going and going. And again, like, it's unfair. It goes back to our conversation in the first part of the show. It is unfair to expect anybody to do that consistently. It's unfair to essentially ask Lamar, hey, Lamar, save us like that every single week. And look, the defense stepped up for Lamar. The defense stepped up for the offense and the special teams, and they got the job done. Lamar saved this team a bunch, and I'm glad that the defense was able to step up for Lamar in a game where he was also just not at his best. I mean, there were throws that were behind receivers. He was low on some throws. He was clearly off his game. It was not a great Lamar performance, and it's okay to say that. The interceptions weren't his fault. The one that bounced off of Keaton Mitchell and the one where Rosengarten was pushed so far back in the pocket that Lamar's throw bounced off of his helmet. But, Lamar also didn't have a great day in general. So it was tough all the way around. But to me, I just feel like he's still getting back into the swing of things after being out for a little bit. He's now been back for 3 games. They're getting into the groove of things. Lamar, to me, I'm just, again, my big question is how far below that 100% threshold is he? Because a lot of guys, they can be at like 95 or 90 or something like that. Where is Lamar on that threshold right now? So look, I'm going to give Damien Harris the benefit of the doubt here. He said he's not using it as an opportunity to bash Lamar. He's asking the questions he genuinely wants to know. And that's all right. I think that these to me are the answers to those questions. I don't think Lamar plays scared. I don't think Lamar is like, what am I going to do? But sometimes when you have that poor offensive line play, when you're maybe not feeling your best, and again, I don't know Lamar's health situation right now. I'm not claiming to know Lamar's health situation right now because I don't. But assuming that there is something going on with the knee and the hamstring stuff, maybe that's still lingering. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be at 100% because no one is at this time. But when there's other things compounding that, then it becomes a whole different conversation. So I don't know the situation right now. I don't think anything's wrong with him, though. I don't think he's not going to be an aggressive player. He's still playing in these games, and he's going to have to see this week against the Jets. I'm hoping he's able to, get back on track from last week because I think he needs a good game. And guess what? The offensive line, they need a good game too. So coming up with the final part of the show, we'll continue diving into a little bit of that Ravens and Browns matchup in Week 11. Talk about some more things that we saw as well. Just diving into what the Ravens can take from that into their game this week against the Jets as well as the rest of the season. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming your way on Locked On Ravens.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, rocking out, talking Ravens football. Be sure you hit the like and subscribe button, video form and audio form for that 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage. If you have a friend or a family member also who is a Ravens fan or wants some daily Ravens coverage, the daily Ravens perspective, be sure you send them over here our way. On Locked On Ravens, we have so many awesome communities that all make up the one big Locked On Ravens community. Plus, you can also follow me on social media at ChaosStriker34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. All right, Ravens and Browns. Again, we've talked a lot about the game in particular, but just kind of to put a bow on it and what we saw when we talked about the offensive line, we talked about Lamar. The hurricane play was unbelievable. I mean, John Harbaugh talked about that, and a lot of the guys did. I know Kyle Hamilton joked that they need to get Mark some carries in that backfield. The crowded backfield right now, essentially, is what Kyle Hamilton said. But I thought that overall, you saw Zay get open. Mark obviously had his moments. Keaton, I thought it was really cool to see him out there for more snaps with Justice Hill being out. Rasheen Ali got involved in the pass game on a big 3rd down. I mean, Lamar was spreading this ball around when he was completing. And even the target share will tell you that. 4 targets to DeAndre Hopkins, 5 to Flowers and Andrews, 3 to Mitchell, 2 to Henry, 1 to a couple of guys as well. So the ball was getting spread around. Lamar targeted how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different receivers in this game. But we know that the Ravens struggled in the red zone. Those woes continue. 1 of 4 for Baltimore. So shout out to Tyler Loop for making all of his kicks. But, at the end of the day, they need to be better at converting touchdowns in those situations and not kicking field goals. Not kicking field goals. I mean, it helps nobody. It helps nobody where you're leaving points out there on the field. I still trust this Ravens team to pick up 14 yards more than I trust them to pick up 4 yards. Their short yardage situation and execution is not where it needs to be. So all that stuff they need to improve on. Again, they played a really good Browns defense. Coming into this game, they were top 10 in a lot of different categories, top 10 in conversion rates, run defense, top 5. Like they're an unbelievable unit, but still have to execute at a high level because you're going to be playing more good defenses as the year goes on. But you do have a little bit of a break. You got the Jets and you have the Bengals, and that Bengals defense is in shambles as it has been for years. And I've been saying this for years on the show. And, we see that with these Ravens and Bengals matchups. But, I'll take it. As a Ravens guy, I'll take that for sure. Other than that, though, the Ravens went 5 of 13 on third down. Got to shout out the defense who held the Browns to just 2 of 14 on third down. They got it together. I thought Draymond Jones was awesome in this game. Kyle Hamilton, a do-it-all player. I can't believe they got him for $100 million over 4 years for that extension. That's a steal of a deal. $100 million being a steal for a guy like Kyle Hamilton, who is now in Baltimore long term. W. Wuzier was awesome. I thought Roquan had a really good game. Shout out to Roquan. Brent Urban made a big play. Travis Jones was dropping back into coverage, and also he was making plays. These guys are starting to win one-on-one now, and that's what you want to see them continue to do over the course of the next couple of weeks, is get involved that way. The Ravens, they're a much more aggressive defense than they were early in the season, and that's great. I love that. But you also have to be able to switch it up, win with rushing 4, rushing 3, Jones, honestly, both Joneses, Draymond and Travis, making that happen. Cal Van Noy got a sack. These guys just feel like they're starting to hit their stride defensively, which is really, really cool. And that's honestly what they needed. We knew that the Ravens were not going to win a lot of games playing the way that they were going into the bye week. This is the second straight year they have come out of the bye week and just looked like a different team almost. And, maybe you don't love the slow starts. I think they need to start a little faster during these seasons, but even still, not how you start, it's how you finish. So that's really cool there. Other than that, though, obviously special teams has to get cleaned up. We know that. LeJontay Wester, Jake Hummel, 2 big mistakes, but the Ravens feels like they usually lose these type of games, right? They've lost them against Cleveland in the past. This is the first time since 2020 that the Ravens have swept the Browns. So Cleveland seems to have Baltimore's number once a year, and whether it's like the game last year in Cleveland where there are all those dropped interceptions and, bad secondary play, or Deshaun Watson coming out in Baltimore a couple years ago with that busted shoulder and not having an incompletion. Like, it just feels like those sloppy games, those AFC North games that the Ravens make all these mistakes in and they're beating themselves. Feels like the Ravens lose those games. So it was really good for them to come out with a win. They're back to 500, which, if you had told me that when they were 1-5 and they'd go on a little 4-game win streak, I probably did say you're crazy. But here we are, and I'm very happy, but you need to continue that momentum and continue to take the positives into these next games, but you got to get rid of the weaknesses. Offensive line, red zone offense, they're still missing tackles on defense, which is tough. Alohi Gilman, a big problem with that. There was that Jerry Jeudy play where he caught the ball like 5 yards short of the sticks and made 3 Ravens miss. Like, the missed tackles are still a bit of an issue for them, but they're not playing great offenses right now. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they weren't doing that early in the season with some of these teams. So they were playing a lot better offenses, but still, like, it was egregious. So I'm glad they're doing what they're supposed to be doing here. And now you have an opportunity against a Jets team that has named Tyrod Taylor their starter, Justin Fields to the bench. We're going to see how that ends up unfolding. Kind of a reunion tour here, playing Joe Flacco, now Tyrod Taylor, both those quarterbacks won the Super Bowl with Baltimore in 2012, 2013. So former Raven alert, Tyrod Taylor coming back to Baltimore to start in week 12. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. on the web. Be sure to like and subscribe button in video form and follow along in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. And be sure you stay tuned for all that we have in store here on the show. And I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.